It was made in the 12th century. It survived the Great Fire, so this is one of the few pieces that is actually original from that time. Just like the Ciborium, which is this work of art, and which marks the precise spot where Paul's tomb is, and we will speak about it later. But this one is divided into different sections. So this section over here has many grotesque animals. There are female figures, but they are represented as very ugly and monstrous creatures because these female figures are maybe symbolize evil, but more particularly Babylon, which is this kind of the epitome of all evils that can be found in kind of scriptural symbology. Then we find some motives that recall the Garden of Eden. So there are many creatures, beasts, plants, and fruits of every kind, and they signal and they represent the kind of the abundance that comes from an intimate and very close relationship with the Lord. At the same time, we also have the Passion of Christ and his resurrection. So we have these two. This one with where you can see the soldiers, and the next one where Pilate is washing his hands, that represent the passion of Jesus. You can then walk around it because it's really beautiful work of art. I'll even some time. And after these two, there comes one in which you can see Jesus in an almond shape, which is the risen Jesus. Now, symbolically speaking, it is interesting to see how Babylon, who there is this in the tradition of the church, there is this kind of expression that is used that is very strong, and that it is that Babylon is drunk with the blood of the martyrs and of the church of Jesus. So it's something that is like not a very nice image. And which can also sound very distant from us, because what has this kind of idol got to do with my own life? Like, it seems to be on two completely opposing and very distant sides. Well, Babylon, we could say, is a symbol for all of the doors we've closed in people's faces, for all of the sins that maybe we still are reluctant to go to confession for all of the betrayals, all of the hurts and wounds we've caused other people, for all of the darkness that is in us and that we feel great shame for and that we would like to hide away. All of this evil, maybe, that is, and it is also part of our lives and of our earthly experience, is completely squashed by the passion and resurrection of Christ. So here again, there is this kind of paradox of the cross, because how is it possible that something as dark as the cross, how can that be victorious over the darkest things that I've done in my life? How can that bring redemption and salvation to me? Now, actually, it's interesting because there is one of the first graffiti that you can find in Rome, is a blasphemous graffito where you can see a donkey who is nailed to a cross, and underneath there is an inscription that says, to Alexamenos, who worships his god. It was basically a way to tease this person, who was called Alexamenos, and who is worshipping a god who, according to this person who drew this, was so stupid as to go and die on a cross, because people just didn't understand why do these Christians worship an instrument of death? There is just no sense. Their God died. Why would he do something so completely stupid and irrational, right? And so here again, there is this idea that the cross does not have the last word. So even though if we repent of our sin, if we go to confession, if we receive the grace necessary to start building up our lives again, then it is true that we will have some empty spaces, some things that maybe have been taken away from us, because even as we walk in our earthly journeys, the cross and maybe the sins also that characterize our lives may leave some spaces in which we feel that maybe we've missed out on something, that something has been taken unrightly from us, and that we ourselves try to fill with things that we know cannot give us happiness. But it is even and precisely in those moments that we can start a relationship with the Lord, because sometimes, suffering just doesn't have a meaning. That is the ugly truth that we need to face. But suffering is also the place where we can enter into relationship with God. He would like to show us that there is a promised land towards which we're all journeying. And that can just sound like something that is completely naive and like a kind of wonderland that just doesn't. Sorry, I'm not facing you at all. Something that is just. It is impossible to realize in our lives. Like, the promised land just sounds like something out of a fairy tale. But the promised land is not something that obstructs us from the difficult reality that we're facing. It doesn't absolve us of the sins that we've committed. But the promised land is a place where we can walk, and it is the reality we already have, but it is the reality where we know that someone is walking close to us. So the Lord is never going to take away the problems and the crosses and the sins that we've committed unless we come to Him in confession, for instance, asking Him to take that away. But the consequences of our sins will always remain. What changes is that we know that even though we may have committed wrongs, even though we may have hurt others, there is someone who is faithful and who does not reject us the way we are, and who will walk with us even if we go through hardships, and who will not punish us, because He is a good God who would really like to be with us in our darkest moments. And this, of course, is something that is the symbol of light as well, because it bears the Paschal light, and it is actually still used. So you can imagine it's 5 meters tall. You can imagine they have quite a lot of trouble to move it around into place.
Also to light it.
And also to light it. I don't know how they do it, but apparently they do. It is still in use. And all right, I think we can now go that side.